Okay, so we can just go ahead and jump in. So could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do generally, and then we can get into more specifics as we go.
Christian Murphy, Christian like the religion, Murphy like Eddie Murphy. And I am the founder and CEO of Eachday, a day-to-day gamified ADHD self-management app for adults.
What was your major at CMU and how did you come about what you do now?
Yeah, so I graduated from CMU back in 2016. I was a BXA major, so my focus was in digital art and professional writing. While at CMU, I did a work study with my professor, Larry Burgess, who was instrumental in my kind of creative mentality, and he really helped me to push myself to pursue new interests, kind of no challenge too big. So I graduated from CMU with that degree, and then I actually went on to work at the Google Creative Lab, and I was doing research on the Pixel phone, the Google Home, and a lot of it was like even person on the street interviews, doing design work, showing it to people, and then a lot of technical writing for interfaces, research pieces, whatever else. And I learned a lot about user experience because I had a woman there from Frog who actually kind of took me under her wing and helped me understand, what's information architecture, how does this play into a UX team? And I think a lot of people are quick to say, like UX, like, oh, are you a designer? But the practice is so much more varied than that. And so even like thinking through like the most valuable UX people at Google, a lot of them were like videographers who could make content that was dynamic on web pages, or it would be like the writers who actually control the tone and the entire like brand, the way that we talk with customers. And so that was really interesting. And then from there, I went on to work at a very small design firm and called Big Yellow Taxi, and I worked on Hooked on Phonics, which is a learning video game. And so it was a small team, 4 or 5 people, learned the importance of being able to really own your area and be the expert, and how it feels to be relied on as the subject matter expert, which was a big responsibility for someone just coming out of college. And then from there, I went to Fannie Mae. I did a lot more web design, kind of traditional personas, service design, looking at their processes, how to unfuck them, basically, because they were just terrible. And it was slow work, but it allowed me to understand the nuances of the process, and then where you could probably start to skip things if you were at a more agile organization. And then from there, I went to Deloitte in their AI and analytics division. I was the 3rd hire there. And we were a specialized design practice that worked on how do we take large data sets or analytics tools and then bring smart AI into it, and then design how the interfaces work so that whoever it is can actually go in and manipulate things and find the information they need. So through my time, I think in undergrad, I learned the creative side. I understood the importance of the relationships. And then at Google, I learned about research, how to approach people, how to have organic kind of user experience research, not too structured and stuffy. At Big Yellow Taxi, I learned about education and how to provide like a gamified play for kids so they learn. And then Fannie Mae was all about understanding customer personas and trying to understand pain points. And then finally, Deloitte was the AI analytics side of things. And so combining all these, the real goal with Eachday is to provide a tool that adults can use to track their day-to-day lives in a fun way to guide improvements across ADHD symptoms. And so while it is heavily data reliant, because that's how we actually are prescriptive with our treatment, it's front facing, it's very creative, it's very fun, and it's meant to be something that is more playful and more of a tool and a game than it's something that you just use as a medical device per se.
Could you talk a little bit about the pros and cons of working on something that you have such a close relationship to in your personal life?
Yeah, the pro and the con are probably the same in the sense that it's like, I know when things are working and when things aren't working. And so I have a strong conviction around what I think is going to work and then using it and seeing if it works or not. But it can feel like sometimes, working with people who you've worked with for so many years that you're designing in a black box, and it's important to continuously seek outside feedback. And so one of the things that I would emphasize here is like the need to continue to user test, because ADHD is so personalized.
So you had mentioned that you worked closely with a professor during your time at CMU. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my professor, Larry Burgess, his face is actually carved into one of the alcoves in the CFA building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was the dean of the College of Fine Arts for a while, and he did amazing things for CMU, including evolving their design program. The whole Moon Art project was his project, and he led that. And he was very involved in the international community. He would visit Afghanistan and do art pieces out there, like shimmering lakes that were only visible at certain times of day based on light refractions. Um, Very conceptual, almost like a holy man in his understanding of like the different spheres of time and space. And so together we worked on Universal Declaration of Human Rights amendments for the United Nations, looking at protecting cultural artifacts and historic sites, especially after the Buddhas in Bamyan were destroyed, and looking at how we can stop those sort of activities from happening again during modern warfare. So for me as a student, it was really interesting to work through some of those problems. And then at the time he had hit post polio, so one of his arms had been kind of crippled, and so I was doing the writing, and he would dictate, and we would go back and forth on the grammar. So it was a great collaboration and a great way to improve my writing and understand like how to write grants and things. So while I was here at the university, I actually got like several $1,000s in grants for making video games and stuff because of learning how to write and through working with him and understanding how to address audiences.
You said you did the panel or the alumni event for the TEDx CMU event. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that. We talked about how that experience was.
Our minds have become so wired to want reward and gratification for like every single activity we do, especially with like social media and stuff like that. It's like we want to be told like good job for everything, and life isn't that simple. Like plenty of times you fail, and then also plenty of times like your actions aren't going to get rewarded. And so it's actually painful for us as a culture because we've become so reliant on this kind of self-aggrandizing and reinforcement that comes out of it. And so what the talk was about was how important it is to be authentic to yourself and to be honest with people and find the people who love you for your authentic you. Because when you do have these moments where you fail and you need to persevere, it's incredibly difficult to do it on your own.
Or what advice do you have for students who might be exploring their interests in interdisciplinary fields right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's really important to spend as much time as possible in different areas of the school and not to get caught up in kind of the like, oh, who is this person? What are they studying? And like, how much are they going to be making after they get out of school? Because it's surprising to see how across the board, everyone that comes out of CMU ends up doing something pretty amazing. And you're limiting yourself if you stick to within your major, within your sorority, within your fraternity. You really need to make sure that you put the effort to go into new places. And sometimes, it depends on who you are. You may be someone who is very extroverted and like get along really well with party people and athletes or whatever else. And it's like, you need to take the time to go and sit at gates and work there and meet the people who otherwise you wouldn't see at these events, and vice versa. I think that if you feel like this is something that you haven't explored before, I'm not saying go out and act crazy, but it's like meet those people who have a different skill set and passion than you. And that could be their athleticism or their knowledge of, doing fine art, whatever it is that is separate from what your day-to-day looks like. And learn from them, because everyone here is very talented and they all have something to teach you. And you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not tapping into the overall network because you're limiting yourself to one area.
Great. Okay, so I think those were all the questions that I had prepared, but do you have any last thoughts you wanted to share, or anything that we skipped over, or anything?
Yeah, I think that one recommendation I would have for people in the UXA who are interested in going into this field professionally is to diversify their skill set, but have like one hard skill that they own. So like whenever you're making a portfolio or showing off what you're able to do, like everyone wants to see the narrative, everyone wants to see the process work, everyone wants to see the deliverable until you get into the real world. And then they're like, I don't give a shit about your process work. Like, what does the final deliverable look like? And like, is this done on time? And how does it work? And how can you communicate that most effectively to your teammates? So when you sell yourself, focus on that one hard skill, or that's like you're a user experience researcher, but you know how to do UI really well, or you're an excellent writer and you also know how to do a little bit of coding, like whatever it is, like show the I think it's called a T, where it's like you have breadth, and there's one thing you really focus on, and just own that as a passion area. Because obviously, when you start working, you'll try different couple things, and then you'll figure out where you fit in. But when you're talking to recruiters who are hiring, they're hiring for one specific role that's kind of been lacking on their team, and they'll know what it is, you won't. But playing to that strength in terms of that one area that you are passionate about will stand out, and they'll keep you in mind if it's not now, in the future when they need to fill that role.